that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. We are having a special edition of Energy Week here. We've invited Jonathan Teller-Elsberg. That's a hyphenated name, which is proof
Nothing but trouble.
Proof of importance. Jonathan comes from a company called Solaflect, which is a company that manufactures trackers. Yes. And I'm very fond of these trackers because they're so artistic.
I'll show you.
I think they're pretty clever.
Yeah, well, they're very clever. There's no question about that.
Solar trackers themselves are clever, but within that category, these are even more clever.
Yes, I think they remind me of that bridge that goes, the new bridge that goes over the Charles River. And so what are we seeing here?
So here is one of our trackers. You can see, at least from the front side here, there's a center post, comes out the middle there.
That aims at the sun.
That points directly at the sun. It moves throughout the day, so that's always pointing at the sun.
So it has no shadow.
The post itself is not casting a shadow, right?
That's right.
Good, yeah.
And you can see that the panels, then there's a high tensile steel cable that goes from that forward point back to the corner of each of the 16 panels.
We can't really see that, can we?
They're hard to see. Let's.
And the shadow they cast is so fuzzy that the solar panels don't notice them.
Largely, I mean, we can measure some impact, but it's less than 0.5% reduction in output.
Now we can see the cables.
Yeah, so you can see the cables there.
Yep.
And there is similarly out the back is another post out the back with cables coming in from behind.
To balance things out.
Yes, these two sets of cables are pulling in tension against each other. Our name for it is the suspension tracker, PV,
right.
for photovoltaic.
Right.
Like a suspension bridge.
Like a suspension bridge. That's the inspiration for this sort of architecture.
Right.
And the idea here, let me get you another picture. Where's the one? You can see top and bottom. Here we go. Here's when a customer sent us a picture.
Oh, isn't that cute? Look at that.
And you can see the wires coming in top and bottom.
Yeah.
And this architecture, this replaces having a heavy steel frame holding the panels in place.
That's important.
Yes.
It's important for actually a couple of different reasons, one of which obviously is that it reduces the mass that you have to pay for when you're buying one of these things.
Yeah, this architecture eliminates about 1,200 pounds of steel.
Oh my gosh!
Compared to a traditional one.
In how many panels?
Well, that one tracker holds 16 panels.
Okay.
So there's the elimination of the weight of the frame itself,
right.
replaced with 7 pounds of high tensile cable, pulling front to back. And then once you have reduced the amount of weight that's being carried by the base system, you can reduce the post, the riser, you can use smaller motors.
Smaller motor.
There's all this light weighting, so to speak, all the way down.
So you've basically just improved the whole thing enormously.
Yes, and it's there's no loss in the structural integrity, just like a suspension bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge, you couldn't build a truss bridge. It would be it would be impossible
to build a truss bridge across
that
the
does
Golden Gate.
What the Golden Gate Bridge does. So the strength is very good, and not to brag too much, but for example, where do I have? So I'll show you. Here's a traditional tracker. There's that heavy steel frame.
And you're saying that frame weighs 1,200 pounds?
Well, between the frame and the heavier weight mounting, that's going to add up to, that's 1,200 as a ballpark.
Yeah.
So that's your traditional tracker design, which our tracker is an alternative to. And And then you can see here's an example of a traditional tracker with the frame. This is one of our customers has one of each.
Ah,
And they already had a tracker previously from another company, and then they wanted to expand their system, and they added one of ours. And then there was a heavy snowfall.
and guess
And
which
you can
one
see,
survived?
look, you can see that the frame was bent on this
Heavy tracker.
on this heavy
Oh,
steel
yeah,
frame.
Wow.
Yep.
And ours was unharmed. And here it is the next day. Here's ours on the right. You can see a little snow is trapped on the tip of the pole.
Yep.
But it's otherwise clear
Yep.
and ready to produce power. It's a cloudy day, so it's not going to be at full power, but some. And here's the other one. It's got snow still stuck to it, so that's going to greatly reduce its productivity.
Why is it that the snow stuck to that one? And
Well, I believe that one, the coating for it, it stays flat to the ground. It's facing up at the sky at night. That's how it sleeps.
Okay.
I don't know why that company has their trackers sleep facing the sky at night where they'll collect snow. Ours sleeps vertical.
It seems to make a little more sense.
But
Yeah.
yours would sleep horizontally in a high if the winds were high.
Right, like that first photo that I showed, here, the reason this one is facing directly up at the sky is because there's a lot of wind this morning when this photo was taken. And you can see here where there's an anemometer. All the trackers have anemometers
Okay, so
on them.
this does it automatically.
Yes, it's always measuring what the wind is.
Yeah.
And if it goes over 25 miles an hour, then we call this
parks.
stowing. It parks,
Yeah.
it stows, facing up. That way the wind is sliding over the thin edge. It's
Yeah.
not standing up in the wind like a sail.
Is this? Is there a computer on this thing?
Yeah, it's got a little circuit board that tells it where to point and receives the information from the anemometer.
Stephen Strong was down here in Brattleboro
Yeah.
on the 11th, and he talked about how important it was that solar panels be able to be adjusted at the very least so they can be horizontal in a high wind.
Right.
Because branches and pieces of
Yeah.
people's garbage can lids and things like that hit the panels if they're not horizontal. If they're horizontal, they're
Going to hit the edges of the
it's
panel.
going to hit the edges.
Right,
and
the framing,
There's
that's-
much better chance of
Yeah.
it withstanding an impact, or even being missed altogether.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is something that's worth thinking about if you want to get solar panels,
Yeah.
and you're not going to put them on your roof,
Yeah.
and most people can't put them on their roof. So
Right. More power to them if you've got a good roof.
yes,
But most roofs are not suitable.
yeah, that's right.
And I'll go in. So there are a few things. What are the advantages of tracking?
Right.
And then, as with our unique architecture, what are the advantages of the Solaflect tracker?
Right.
In terms of the lightweight, lower cost,
Right.
the durability.
Let's explain to everybody what the advantage of tracking is.
So let me show some things. So there are sort of three categories of why you get more energy out of your solar panels if they track.
Okay.
Category one is you effectively get a longer day. So this is a graph. It's a sort of a cleaned up, simplified graph showing the solar production you can get on the solstice using Montpelier, using times from Montpelier.
Okay.
A fixed mount solar array, whether it's on a roof or on the ground, typically will be pointed more or less south. And the whole summer half of the year, the sun is rising in the northern hemisphere, it's rising out of the northeast, and
Right.
it sets in the northwest.
Right.
So when it's north of the east-west line, it's behind the
Panels.
fixed
They
fixed
can't
panels.
even see the sun.
Right, so they're ignoring them.
Yeah.
So there's added time when you can get that in the morning, and added time. This graph is showing, the most extreme at the summer solstice. It's something like 3 hours, altogether
So that's the amount of time
of
extra.
added time that you can
Right.
that you're going to be producing.
But also there's a difference in the quality of the light, which you can see from the slope of the red section.
Well, yes, that's the other thing. So a solar panel is most productive when the sunlight is hitting it directly head on.
Right.
So the more direct the angle. And in that graph, the reason that the tracker rises quickly and follows a plateau over the day is because it is facing directly at the sun the whole time. And so the intensity, they can't see the mouse?
No, unfortunately.
Okay. Whereas the traditional fixed mount, the sun is at the beginning when the sun first rounds the corner and can shine on the fixed panels, it's coming in at a very glancing angle. So the productivity is going to be low. The power density of that light is lower. It's rising until noon, and then it's falling back off again. So I'll show another image that does that comparison. On the left is what the fixed panel is going to get. And in this case, it's sort of the image looks as though it's from noon on a summer day when the sun is up high.
Right.
And you can see that some of the available light simply misses it altogether because of the width of the presentation of the panels. And a little bit is going to bounce off as glare.
Right.
This is also, if you change the orientation, this is true in the morning, in the afternoon when the sun is coming in from the sides rather than directly above. A fixed panel will only be facing directly at the sun two moments out of the whole year. If it's south facing on latitude, then that'll be noon at the spring equinox and the autumn equinox.
Right.
Every other moment of the year, it's coming at some kind of angle. The tracker on the right, it's facing directly at the sun. Wherever the sun is, that's where it's looking. So it's capturing the full intensity of that light.
Right.
So that's advantage number 2. The advantage 1 is the longer day. Advantage 2 is better use of the available light. And advantage 3 is, in this climate, what do you do with snow?
Right.
The tracker, as we talked about earlier, the Solaflect tracker spends every night vertical by default, unless there's high wind to make it otherwise. And that means any snow that might have collected on it during the day is going to slough off once night comes and it goes vertical. Any snow that's falling at night is passing by it. Obviously, sometimes the snow is a little bit sticky. There's some wind. It can have a little skim of snow that might stick to it in the course of the storm. But then as soon as the sun comes out, the darkness of the panels warms up. That snow just burns right off very quickly. So these two pictures I took this past winter. You'll recall February was very snowy. And you can see a couple things on the upper image, which are fixed solar panels, ground mounted. Their angle is such that they hold the snow a lot longer. They don't automatically dump them at night the way the tracker does. Another thing is, once a lot of snow has been coming, when it does warm up enough to slide off, you can see it's built up such a huge bank of snow at the bottom that now the snow can't slide off altogether. It's being stopped by the snowbank at the base of those panels. So that array up top, at the time that I took the picture, must be producing basically zero production. It's all but fully covered.
And if you had significant snow, that could last a while.
Yes, and that did happen. We have a customer, a commercial customer out in Middlebury, who has a set of trackers in the field next to the facility and solar on the roof. And and this is very sensible to use the space that they have, to use both. Mm-hmm. And in summer, they get good production out of the roof. Mm-hmm. Of course, better out of the trackers. In winter, it really was astonishingly different. He gave us the production numbers for this past February. I think it was either January or February for the two different sets of arrays. The trackers on a per watt of capacity basis, like per solar panel, produce 50 times more energy.
Oh my gosh.
50?
In that month, it was either January or February, than the roof ones, because the roof ones were covered in snow. It was as if they were in a cave. You can buy solar panels and you put them in a cave, they're not going to do much.
They're not going to do much.
Happily, then winter does pass, and he's getting his money back from those ones, but the trackers just do better.
Yeah.
That's how they
The
are.
trackers are going to do better year round.
Yes.
But they're going to do much better under certain circumstances,
Yes.
as they did in that particular February.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. A tracker has, an accurate tracker, I should say, which is what we offer, has another advantage in terms of future proofing, being
Okay.
prepared for future technology. So I'm going to put up a graph. Hopefully it's somewhat visible. This is a
It's
graph
visible, all right.
produced, okay, so bear with me for a moment.
I've seen that graph
Yeah.
before.
So
many times.
NREL, you can see in the top right corner,
Yeah.
NREL, National Renewable Energy Lab out in Colorado. This graph, you can see it starts in 1975 in the bottom and goes up to the current day. This graph is showing what is the world record efficiency for different photovoltaic technologies. This is laboratory conditions. And each line with its different shaped symbol, circles or squares or triangles or whatever, shows a different type of photovoltaic chemistry or technology. They can't see the mouse, huh?
No, unfortunately.
Can't see
Okay.
the mouse.
So down along the sort of lower side shows what the record is for what is standard PV technology that's used, for almost any installation in Vermont, rooftop or ground, and that's the silicon crystal technology. And if you had this graph up close and you could see the details, you'd see even in the laboratory that technology has basically not improved at all in 20 years.
Okay.
They've pretty much maxed it out.
Yes.
And that's in the lab, that's at about 25%, 26% efficiency. That is 25, 26% of the energy in the sunlight being converted into electrical energy. The ones that you buy, of course, are not as good as the
They're
ones in the
not
lab.
as good as
Standard ones are about 16% efficient. You can get a premium panel that is a touch over 20%.
There's a good reason to get a premium panel under certain circumstances, and under other circumstances, you're better off going to a less expensive one.
Right. It has to do with what space do you have available,
Exactly.
and your cost benefit.
If you've got a big
measurement.
roof and it's facing the right direction,
Yeah.
and it's going to be inexpensive to put these things up, then it would make sense to use a little bit extra space and
Yeah.
and a less expensive panel. But if you're going to go to a tracker, or if you're going to develop expensive real estate,
Right.
then you have a good reason to go for the best.
Well, in our case, we're using, we're not using the very top tier in terms of efficiency for our panels.
Right.
We're using panels that are 16% efficient, that kind
Okay.
of pretty much standard. It's a high quality, but it doesn't have that
Yeah.
same power density. And for us, the advantage of the tracking, which as a rule of thumb in this area is about 40% more productivity compared to the same panels measured over the year,
Yep.
compared to the same panels in a fixed orientation. So that's sort of good enough. And we'd like to keep the cost as affordable as possible. So we are not using the very most power dense panels. But the reason I put up this graph and talk about future proofing is that on the graph you can see there are other chemistries, other types of photovoltaic technology that
Right.
are far more efficient
Right.
than the standard silicon crystal. They are currently not cost effective for a regular residential or commercial user. They're useful in satellites, in uncommon situations
Right.
where the power density is the overriding concern.
Right.
Those technologies in the laboratory are 3 times more efficient than the silicon crystal.
Right.
There are manufactured versions that are twice as efficient. These very highly efficient photovoltaic technologies. Oh, and the other thing is, unlike the silicon crystal, which hasn't budged for 20 years in the laboratory, these other ones, every few months, there's a new record.
I know. I see those happen all the time.
Yeah, and
Regular
in theory, they're only halfway towards sort of the theoretical max. They have a lot of room to improve.
Right.
Is that the one on the upper right?
Yes,
Yeah. See all the steps in it.
exactly. All those dots is every time there's a new record. So all of these very highly efficient technologies, something that's unique, even when they use different chemistries, they use concentrated light. They are focusing large amounts of sunlight onto a small area of the photovoltaic material. And that allows the material to function at its highest efficiency. So it's not just that they have a better chemistry, it's also that they use concentrated light.
It's sort of like they're putting lenses on them.
Yes, and one way to do that is with a lens. Another is with a parabolic mirror. I happen to have an image that shows a parabolic configuration.
Mirror, yes.
So you capture all the light of the area of that mirror, that's this cup shape, and you're focusing it down to a very small area of highly efficient multi-junction photovoltaic cell.
Yes.
Oh,
When you
that's
do that,
pretty clever. Look
yes,
at
you
it.
can
Two
get
mirrors.
in this particular configuration. If you're going to do that, if you bring out your old notes from geometry, if you want a parabolic mirror to focus your light on the right place, you have to aim the parabolic mirror at the sun.
Right.
It doesn't work if the sun is off to the side.
Yep.
So you have to track. And that's true if it's with lenses too. If you're going to take advantage of these highly efficient solar panels that in 5 years, 10 years are going to be cost effective, they must track. And they must track accurately. Most trackers they're close enough for the regular kind of panel, plus or minus a few degrees of accuracy. With a crystal silicon panel, it doesn't care.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you go to this kind of technology, it matters. You cannot be off by
if
2
you're
or 3
off,
degrees.
Tom, put that up again.
You'll miss the target.
You'll miss the target. The light is not going to go through the hole in the mirror.
Right.
That reminds me so much of a telescope I've got.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
catadioptic telescope. And, that's basically, this is old, it's an old concept. What is new about this is the chemistry of the material at the end, which is picking up the power of the
Right.
sun.
And so currently, there are panels that are manufactured using this. Again, they're not cost effective for use by regular people. But that will change.
Yeah.
They're going to increase their scale. They'll improve their manufacturing techniques.
Right.
The chemistry is improving. So
They're
that's going to become
actually
cost
marketing
effective.
these things for utility scale
Right.
installations. I'm seeing those come up.
And what the Solaflect tracker, because of our history of working with the Department of Energy, which has been very supportive of our engineering to bring down the cost with the efficiency of the materials that we do and all the other engineering improvements that we have been devising, they required of us, and we were happy to do it, to have our tracker be very, very accurate. Accurate enough that it's compatible with this kind of technology.
Interesting.
So our existing customers, when these panels become cost effective, again, let's call it 5 years, 10 years, they'll be able to retrofit their tracker. The tracker itself, they don't need to replace. The pedestal doesn't need to be replaced. The foundation in the ground doesn't need to be replaced. The conduit that's in the ground doesn't need to be replaced. So it's not like buying an entirely new solar array. They get to replace just the parts that need replacing for that improvement in efficiency.
Right.
If they need it. If their tracker is producing all the electricity
Well,
they need, then they just stick with what they've got.
That's a good issue too, because the solar panels that we have today that are just the standard kind of run-of-the-mill solar panels look like they might have lifetimes that could go pretty long.
Absolutely. I mean, they're not going to be, it's unlike a computer. A solar panel doesn't become defunct. It doesn't become outdated.
Yeah.
It might not be the newest, most efficient,
Right.
but it makes electricity.
It's still working.
It's
If
still
you
working.
use electricity, a plain old solar panel still works.
Yeah, and I saw a couple of years ago a thing about a solar system. It was a very small system. It was the first solar PV system to be grid tied in France.
Uh-huh.
And it had been grid tied, I think, in 1991,
Yeah.
92, 93, but it was in that, I think it was 91. And that system, when it was 20 years old, was still producing basically I think it was 94% of they degrade very slowly.
Yeah.
But it was producing something like 94%
That's
of
terrific.
the electricity that it had been producing when it was new.
Yeah.
Most of the degradation is in the first year.
Right.
And so if you look at this you say, well, how long can that be done? It's still going to be valuable 100 years
Right.
hence
Yeah.
if some tree hasn't dropped on it or something.
Right, right. You know, it might become cost effective to upgrade, to replace,
Right.
use your framing and replace it with
Right.
with something like that, like in the tracker.
That
But
would be an individual
exactly, it's
decision to make at that particular time.
for their circumstances.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Got a question.
Yeah.
The parabolic mirror that we just looked at,
Yeah.
what would be the physical size of that one?
That particular one, would be like this,
Okay.
and then the piece of PV material, might be that big.
Okay.
So it's very material efficient in the thing that's really expensive. The PV material is the
PV
hardest
material,
thing,
yeah.
that high efficiency multi-junction. That's hard to make. Okay, don't make much of it. Use a mirror to bring the light to it. So that's,
And how would that one little PV junction compare to an existing panel today?
well, that piece with the mirror like this is going to produce about the same amount of electricity. I'm not sure. It replaces a piece of traditional PV that's that big.
Okay.
Now, the mirror one, to create a panel, you would have one
A whole
here,
bunch of them.
another
A
one
whole
next to
bunch
it,
of
another.
them. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
There would be a group of them that combine into a panel, and then you can have multiple panels as you're
Right.
filling your tracker.
Yep, and the advantage of this system is that you're going to get more electricity out of the same space.
From the same footprint, right.
Yeah.
From the same footprint in your yard, you can get maybe double, maybe triple, as the technology changes, the
And
amount of energy.
The big reason why people don't do this today is that it's a little bit more expensive. A lot
Right.
more expensive.
Let's say if it would double your energy output, right now, if you wanted that, it would cost more than double the dollars.
Yes.
So instead, do 2 of the traditional trackers.
Well,
Right.
we've been observing these prices coming down regularly and rapidly.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of, I've said this one before, one way or another, there's a lot of very smart people working on stuff like this.
Yes. Yeah.
You may be being one of them, of course.
Well, I don't do that. Oops, I banged that. I don't do the engineering.
But some of them are going to hit
Yeah.
it right on the head.
Yes, absolutely. And it is improving. It's also, I think some people have the idea, oh, the price is always improving, so I'll wait. And then 5 years later, you've been paying your electric bill to the utility
Yes.
for those 5 years, waiting for the price to get where. The solar panels at this point are a third, a quarter of the cost of the total solar array. You could have free solar panels, and that's a 25, 30% savings. So
Right.
yes, it's true that the panels are coming down in cost. That's not a reason to wait.
Right,
You
because
know.
you're going to be spending your money on the electric bill.
Yeah,
And if you finance the panels, it's cheaper than the money on the electric
it
bill.
absolutely can, Bill. Can
And
be.
the time will come in the future when it does make sense economically to make change.
Yeah.
Upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
Right.
for fun, I brought some clips. One thing is, let me get this going. This shows one of our installations happening, and we have been working on not
They
only
work fast.
yeah. This is a time lapse.
This is in a high wind, as you can tell from the shadow
Yeah.
of the clouds going over.
So not only do our engineers in White River Junction, we're a local company, I'll
Yeah.
throw out there.
Yeah.
Our engineers are designing it, they're manufacturing it in White River Junction. Our business office is in Norwich.
I should point out for those who might be watching in Santa Cruz or Oradell, New Jersey, or someplace.
We do have such people.
Yes, exactly.
Local means Vermont, but you can get these
That-
things
yes.
where you want them.
And in addition to the engineering of the physical object of the tracker to
Right.
get that to be more efficient, lower cost, they also put a lot of thought into how can we install it. The labor time is a
Right.
big cost in
Yes.
solar. So we have now been able, most of our installations, it's one day. We show up at 7 in the morning, and by 2, 3 in the afternoon, the tracker is complete. It's providing power.
Wow.
So, I can back up and show, let me go back to the beginning here because here they are. they put in the foundation, that boom truck. So on the right, you can see the yellow excavator. Ignore that. On the left is the boom truck. It just set the foundation into the hole. The crew goes in there and they level the bolts. And then you can see the next thing that just happened was the boom truck installed the riser pole, the main riser. It goes halfway up.
That's a pretty specialized instrument, isn't it?
The
boom
steel.
truck.
Yeah, I mean, this is a conventional boom truck, that the cement company, that's not our truck. This is a subcontractor from the cement company that makes the precast foundation for us. Heavy stuff. So now you can see they're bringing on, right in the middle, they're adding the tracker half. So the bottom half is a simple steel pole riser. And then the second half has the tracker mechanism on it. And now they set that on. And the white object at the top of the pole is the inverter. And then the excavator came back and filled in the hole, and now they can stand around on it. All right, so right there, if you saw, they folded it down. Back it up a little bit. This is one of our innovations to make it easier. It used to be we had to put up scaffolding to be able to reach the height of where the panels get put in. So there's a half a day or something just building the scaffolding. That's a lot of time. And then they had this great thought. What if we just bring the tracker down to where the people are? So they built in this hinge.
So
that's
you're
one of our
many
another patent.
hours of labor with a hinge.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a
So
cool
now
idea.
you'll see now at standing at the ground, they can carry over the panels and pop, and now they're doing it. They're popping them in. And it takes, about 1 minute when you bring the panel over, or 30 seconds, to pop it into the corner brackets,
That's kind of
pull in
amazing.
the cable that hooks into the bracket, and that's it. It's hanging there. Now they're doing the top ones. Gravity is holding it in place against the top cables. And they pop them in. It's really amazing. There's so much work that goes into it. And then the part that looks like they're doing a solar array where the panels go in, boom, 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 that's in half an hour, all the panels are in place.
Wow. Those people are moving so fast.
That's what happens when you
When
blink
they're
for 30,
enthusiastic.
when every blink lasts for 30 seconds. Or 5 seconds, or whatever the time lapse was set to. And they can adjust the tilt a little bit so they can easily access. Then they go to the other side, fill them in. And then once those are all in, they're going to connect all the electronics in the back.
Right.
We have optimizers integrated into the back of each of the panels. That allows each individual panel to function at its own personal best, regardless of what the conditions are on the neighboring ones.
Okay.
Bingo. They just
Bingo. Then they bring it up.
Just a rose.
And now that hinge has done its work. It's available if we ever needed to bring it down for some kind of repair. And now they're running it through some paces. They're cleaning up. You can see they put grass seed and straw on the ground. We want the customers to be happy. It rotates east to west. It tilts up and down. And as such, it can
That's
point
amazing.
anywhere the sun will ever be.
Look at that thing go.
And it goes around. And then in this particular case, it's not pointing the right place because it hadn't had its clock set. And then they go over there. They call into White River Junction. They say, set the clock, because it's internet connected, so they can remotely monitor and remotely
was going to
adjust.
ask, is
And then
this
boom.
internet
And now it's
connected?
pointing at the sun.
Amazing.
That was it. So that's one of the terrific things we've been able to accomplish. And then I've got give you a little video of the tracker running. Here it is, going through a day. This is a little choppy. We should have set the time lapse. This was 5-minute increments, and didn't make for a smooth image, but there it is.
It's interesting to see that you can follow the fact that tracker has its angle to the horizon different as it goes through the day. It's almost horizontally oriented there, where the panels are vertical,
Right.
which it would be at the beginning of the day also. And as you go through the day, it rises so that it's pointing at a sun that's high in the sky.
Yes. So it goes through. And then you can see here, end of the day. In this particular location, there's trees up to the west. So this
Right.
one, it's not producing the most it possibly could. I've never found a place in Vermont or New Hampshire with 100% solar access.
Right.
We're not Kansas, but plenty good. And then you can see it finishes the day. It's vertical,
Yep. And it goes to
and then
sleep.
it rotates to be ready for the morning. Now it's ready for dawn. And that's it. That's where it's going to sleep.
Yep.
And you can see this image is nice. You can see the edge on. There's no frame. There's just these cables in tension, front to back, holding everything in place. Then the panels are structural.
Pardon me for coughing.
Yeah.
This thing is we may not be Kansas here in Vermont, but we do have the advantage of having a relatively cool climate,
Yes. Yes,
which
and that
makes
helps.
the panels more efficient.
That's right.
People should realize that. You know, there are reasons why. Actually, there are strong reasons why people should have solar operating in Vermont or New Hampshire or what
Yeah.
have you. And you know, it's interesting.
If you can keep the snow off.
If you can keep the snow off. If the number one and number two states for solar are California and Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Number three is
Jersey, maybe?
New
think it's North
Jersey.
Carolina.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is New Jersey number three? Well, it's because of a number of things, including the political climate and so forth in New Jersey.
Right.
But New Jersey is not that different from Vermont.
No.
And there's no reason why. The reason why we would never have as much solar installation as New Jersey does, simply that they have more people.
Right. Yeah.
But there's plenty of opportunity to do this.
Yeah. If I went back on the day that we did that time lapse of that customer's tracker moving throughout the day. I went back and I got the production data. And so I've got a little graph here. And this shows, I had shown that graph
Yes,
earlier that showed
absolutely.
the plateau. This is the real thing. This is the real production. You can see right after sunrise, it zooms right up to maximum. It just hovers right around maximum all through the day, and then you can
Nice and
see where it
flat.
goes into
Wow.
the shade. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like
Right flat. I can't believe it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And this is good, of course, for the customer. It means that customer is getting more energy, for their investment in solar. This is also has social benefit, environmental benefit, because this kind of solar is highly productive early in the morning, late in the afternoon, when the grid is peaking.
Right.
Whereas a traditional array is going to really be useful in the middle of the day, which is useful,
Yes.
but it has less ability to replace the fossil fueled power.
Yeah. The traditional panel is producing electricity during peak demand periods, but of course, the peak demand period goes past the time when the traditional panel is not.
Right.
Actually, it'll go past the time that these do too.
Yeah, depending
a lot
on the
of
time of year.
time
Yeah.
of year.
In winter, when the day
Yeah.
is short. Yes.
Yeah. But in the summer, if you've got good western exposure with one of these things, I would imagine it would keep producing after 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that means that you're getting into a period where the peak is already starting to slide down.
Right.
So that's an important consideration, and this is something that people should understand. When we're talking about solar power and we're talking about efficiency, we could talk about efficiency in terms of watts. We can talk about efficiency in terms of dollars. Peak power is expensive power.
Right.
This is replacing
very
expensive
They,
power.
right. The utility might be buying that wholesale at $1 a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
And they sell it to you at 15 cents.
That's right.
That's a big loss for
And
them.
then they have to go to the Public Service Board and say, we should be making more money, so we have to raise our prices. And that's all calculated in there. Eventually, the cost of peak power gets to you if
Yeah.
you're the consumer. Well, this solar power, if it's going on as net metered power and the utility is paying extra for it, they are replacing much more expensive power much of the time. It's something that
To the extent that the solar production
Cuts costs.
coincides
You know,
with the peaks.
Jonathan.
And that's,
a couple of years ago, I
Yeah.
read something that was interesting, and I just love this. In southern Italy,
yeah.
people, the Italians are very family oriented, and they're interested in being frugal and things like that. They're almost Scottish, in that respect,
Except for the accent.
except for the accent. That's right, and the color of their hair. the amount of solar PVs that had been installed was so high that the price of power during the traditional peak period was very often going to zero.
Right. Yeah. Because they were producing everything that was needed.
Everything.
Yeah,
was
it's
needed.
wonderful.
And
I have to say this, this ability to actually produce power into the peaks
Yeah.
and really reduce the amount of the dirtiest electricity that's produced is produced during those peaks when they turn on the utilities have to go to their peaker plants that are burning jet fuel.
Natural
or
gas,
oil,
but it's like in a jet engine.
Often
It's not efficient.
Right. And, I mean, some of them are burning jet fuel, the real
Yeah.
peakers. And, I mean, so years before, sorry for bumping that, years before I had any idea that I might work for Solaflect, I was on the town energy committee, and there was this new company doing this new technology in town, and we were curious, and I was learning about it. And when I learned about the ability of the tracker to produce energy into those peaks
Yes.
and get rid of the worst of the traditional production, that's when I fell in love with this.
Yeah.
And then, I was doing other things, and then I, career change, and then I had this opportunity to start working for Solaflect, and it's been
That's
really
nice.
quite wonderful.
That's
It's very
nice.
gratifying.
What do we have on the screen, Tom? Oh, we have
I just put
Hello.
the
Jonathan on the screen.
put the grass back up.
So, I'll show through. Those are some of the technical things. For fun, I'll take you through some of the. Did I open it? Some pretty pictures.
There we go. Nice.
Up close. There's that one we started with. So sometimes people ask about the size. If you stand right next to it, it's big. A rooftop solar array, which this is similar size to the standard rooftop array, you take that off of the roof and put it down close to the ground,
Right.
It'll be big next to your body. For
how-
scale,
Yeah.
it takes up visually, of course, it changes how big it looks depending on the angle.
Right.
But more or less, it takes up the same visual space as an apple tree. I've realized by going to people's homes.
How high off the ground is the lowest part of that little system?
When it's standing vertical, so its bottom edge is closest to the ground, it's about 3.5 or 4 feet off the ground.
I see. Okay.
And it's lifted that high in this climate so that in the winter it won't be a snowplow.
And here I thought that it was so the goats wouldn't bite it.
Well, we don't want goats in it either. Sheep would be fine. Goats might jump into the wires. Here's
a
another
little-
sort of scale.
Yeah.
Here you can hardly see it in the trees. In this
Right.
case, at this angle, it almost disappears because
If it
it's that
wasn't
thin
for
edge.
the shadow, I wouldn't know it was there.
Yeah.
This is not as obtrusive as a farmer's silo.
And this could be put
Yeah.
on. This could be put on a rooftop too.
No, it cannot.
Can't at
Has to
all.
go on the ground. Has to go on the
Even if
ground.
it's a flat roof.
between the weight, in theory,
Okay.
but between the weight of it,
All
the
right.
foundation is I forget the exact number. We're talking something
it's
like
heavy.
$6,000-8,000 concrete foundation. I wouldn't put it on a roof.
Okay.
And of course, an angled roof, a sloped roof, wouldn't
Not
work
gonna
because
make
it couldn't rotate. It would bump into the roof.
But I wonder.
Here's a customer that, this is a case where, sorry to interrupt,
That's
but
okay.
where there's an extended family, a mother and 2 daughters, all grown. They're sharing it. They have it, one of the daughters' properties has a good backyard, and through group net metering, which is available in Vermont easily, New Hampshire not so easily in theory, but less in practice in New Hampshire, they're able to share the benefit of the trackers between the 3 different households.
Right.
Which is just an economic thing. It's just a bookkeeper's stroke of the pen.
Yeah, it's simple accounting for the utility.
Right. I was wondering, Jonathan,
yeah.
whether it would be possible to put a group of these on the roof of a parking garage, if the parking garage was not really used as much as it might be.
That would be, that's going to have the structure, the strength
It would have the strength.
to carry the weight. So speaking of group net metering, this slide, I'll we'll go back to it. I don't want it to be
Okay.
distracting. To your question about on the roof, yes. I mean, if you didn't need the top level of a parking garage for parking,
Yeah.
then you could do it. That's a parking lot. It probably makes sense to have a solar canopy. You know, trackers are awesome. They are very often going to be the best choice. They're not always going to be the best choice.
Okay.
If I had a parking lot, I'd put a solar canopy over. You can
Right.
still park. You haven't
Right.
lost the parking spaces. And the solar canopy is producing your solar electricity, and it's shading the cars, and
Right.
that has good advantages.
I think, you know, I'm just thinking the parking garage that's between Elliott and Flat Street, the north wall of that could probably hold several of these, and it would not cause any use of the roof at all.
The north wall could hold them, they'd be facing south.
They'd be facing south. They'd be over you know, a little bit above the cars.
So they'd be basically sitting.
You know, I'm just
Up at the
thinking,
end.
we've got so many different options
Yeah.
for these kinds of things. And
Yeah.
the
We
canopy
haven't
that
even begun
you're
thinking
talking-
about it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we haven't
Well,
begun
we
thinking
thought
about it.
George and I would solve the whole problem.
That's amazing. That's amazing. This is fantastic. So what we mentioned before, you know, I showed the picture with the family that's sharing 3 trackers that are
Yes.
in one yard.
That's right.
Group net metering is what allows for community solar.
And there's a picture of it right
and this
there.
is a schematic.
Is that a photograph?
So if your roof is made of quilt, then you should not put solar on your roof. This
That's
is if
a good
if there's
point.
one lesson that I can recommend. So these houses would not be a good place to put solar on the roof.
Actually, you wouldn't want to put solar on the roof probably of most slate roof houses.
Even, I mean, finding someone who'll do it would
I
would not be
actually
easy.
found someone who
Well,
would
there
do
is a
it.
building nearby.
Oh,
I
is
just
there?
walked right past it. Yeah,
Oh,
right,
okay.
right around the corner. And that's the first time in my life I've seen solar
Well,
on slate.
I have seen, I came across a company that would do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think they came up with a brilliant system that I would never use.
Right. As engineers, fantastic.
Yeah, right.
For life, forget about it.
Yeah, right.
So with group net metering, the people don't have to be in the same family to share the benefit of solar that is
They don't
located
have to be in the
one
same
place.
location.
They only have to share the same utility.
Yeah.
So we offer that, you know, because
Yeah.
most people, they don't have a good place to put solar on their property.
Right.
So we find the land.
And as a matter of fact, what was Yalaho?
Yaloha.
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 They have organized
Okay.
with Green Mountain Power.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a problem with their model,
Okay.
which in 2 basic words, and I'm sorry to say them, deceptive marketing.
Oh no.
Okay.
They don't give solar to their customers. They lead their customers to think they're getting solar. Their customers are not getting solar. I don't like.
What are they getting?
They're getting residual mix. They're getting 60% fossil and 40% nuclear.
No kidding.
Goodness gracious.
So
That
here's
doesn't sound
okay.
good.
Let's switch up. Okay, if you're a customer of Green Mountain Power, this is where your source of energy is coming from. This is Green Mountain Power's supply after you account for the buying and selling of renewable energy credits.
Oh, after you account for the
So this is
credits.
legitimate. You have to account for that. Because the person
This
who
is
paid
what
for the
people have been
yeah.
complaining about with the old speed program.
Yes, where it was double counting.
Okay.
And now we have double counting at the consumer level rather than the commercial level of the speed program.
Okay. And that's what you meant by deceptive.
Yes. So here's Green Mountain Power right now. Green Mountain Power is clearly one of the better utilities in the country.
Oh, clearly.
You know, look at them. They're about half renewable.
Right.
There are not many utilities in the United States that could say that. So hats off to GMP there. There's a long way to go. We want to be 100%, but there we are.
Where are they getting their fossil fuels?
That's out of their wholesale purchases from the regional grid.
Okay, so it's
And
coming
the
from
nuclear,
somebody else,
right?
it's in a mix.
So these are not. This doesn't represent necessarily long-term contracts. You know, the nuclear 26% is not because they have a contract with a nuclear
Okay.
facility. It's because
It's
a
a
lot of
mix.
times they need to buy whatever wholesale power is available.
Exactly. The power purchase agreements are going to be honored, but you know that
You don't
that's
know what the source of all
when-
of that power is.
well, if you have a power purchase agreement, you know where it is. But
'Cause it's
when
from
the-
a specific
when you
supplier.
get to the peak that we have been talking about, you take what you can get.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
they have to supply
They
what
have
the
to
users
supply
are,
this.
are demanding. Otherwise, the
Right.
whole system falls
And
apart.
you haven't got a PPA for the peak demand.
Right.
You can't do it because
do it.
nobody knows what it is.
So here's what happens if you sign up for solar, but the provider, the developer, sells the RECs. You get squat.
Yep.
Oops.
This is what you're legally speaking, if you do the accounting, this is what you're getting.
Okay.
But people think they're going solar. And there are a number of Vermont companies that offer what they call community solar, but they sell the RECs. So
Well,
what they give
this
the,
is- who was it that just recently said they weren't going to do that? Was that Bradford?
well, there's been a controversy in Stratford.
No. There was one of the towns said we're going to have 100% of our power for our municipal buildings
Mm-hmm.
from renewables, and we are not going to sell the RECs. We're going to retire them.
I don't know, of a recent announcement like this, I
It was
missed it.
about 2 months ago.
I know the town of Norwich gets 100% of its electric bill covered from Solaflect,
The municipal bill.
the municipal
Yeah.
bill, so
No, I'll
the
bet
town
that's the
facilities.
town that I'm
It may have
talking
been.
about.
We're having a solar celebration for Norwich this Sunday. Everyone is invited. Please, there'll be barbecue, there'll be music this Sunday, 4 p.m. I don't know if the
Fancy
show.
girls?
I don't know if the show is going to run. I don't know if people will
Well,
see this
I
before
think
it's
it was
before it happens.
Norwich that I was thinking
Yeah.
of. I believe.
And just in case, October 4th or something.
Okay.
Is that right? Is that what
don't
Sunday
know.
is? So in case someone sees this, 2015, Sunday,
Yes.
October 4th, 2015, 4 to
People
7
will be
p.m.
seeing this
in
after
Norwich.
So
So don't
4th,
come
but I'm hoping
if you've
people
missed
will
the
see
date.
it before.
Anyway, we're celebrating that the town is going 100% solar, and that's with the
retiring-
RECs. That's
they're
right.
Retiring the RECs.
Yes.
And that was something
That's
that,
why they're solar. Without
That's
the
right.
RECs, they're not solar.
that was why and in fact I wrote an article about this for Green Energy Times.
Mm-hmm.
And that was why the people in the Energy Committee up there and the people in the community were so adamant that the RECs were not going to be sold.
Yeah. And for listeners, just REC is REC, Renewable Energy Certificate, or Renewable Energy Credit.
And people sell them.
Yeah. And which is, I mean, there is a place for a market in buying and selling RECs.
Right.
That's, I don't have an issue with that.
It encourages people who otherwise would not do it. And I shouldn't say people, it's going to be more like organizations.
Right.
People who otherwise would not do it to buy and install equipment.
Yes. But when it is improperly used so that you have one customer who thinks they're going solar, but actually the solar, I mean, there are two things that are being made out of a solar panel. There's the electricity physically. There's no difference between that electricity and coal-powered
That's
electricity.
what you think.
It's an electron, it's electromotive force, they're the same.
They look the same.
And then there is the fact, which we know, which is not the physics of the electron, but it's the social and environmental fact this electron was empowered by sunlight, not burning a fossil fuel.
Right.
That is a separate aspect of that electricity. What a renewable energy certificate is the accounting measure of that quality, the fact that this energy was produced in a clean way.
Right.
And when you sell that, the buyer is assuming the responsibility. They are paying the money to take responsibility for the extra cost it costs today to have a clean facility instead of a dirty facility.
The extra cost that it costs today
Up front.
is going down so fast
Yes.
that
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole grid parity thing. But so when RECs are misused is when you do a bait and switch. When you say to someone, hi, buy solar, and they pay you money. And then you take the solar aspect of what they bought and you sell it to someone else.
Right.
And that's the Federal Trade Commission in the
Well-
Code of Federal Regulations calls it deceptive marketing.
There is one advantage to that, to the environment, and that is that it's getting something installed that might not otherwise be installed.
I partly disagree.
Okay, you're allowed.
Because if you want to go solar
Right.
and you think you've gone solar, you're not going to buy another solar panel because you think you're already solar. The utility that bought the RECs, they were going to invest in solar one way or another because the law requires that they have renewable energy in their portfolio.
Right.
And the penalty in Massachusetts can be as high as like $40 a kilowatt hour. They are going to buy solar. If they can get it cheap.
$40 a kilowatt hour?
It depends on which part of the renewable portfolio standard, the law in Massachusetts.
Wow.
There's certain
This is
slices.
stiff.
Yes. So there's a certain slice that's, if they don't meet that law, they will hate life. You know, solar is a lot cheaper than $40 a kilowatt hour. They
is
will do
cheaper.
it. Now, if they want to do it the lowest cost way they can, if they can do it by buying RECs from Vermont at 6 cents a kilowatt hour, they'll do it.
Of course.
If they can't get it at 6 cents a kilowatt hour because you kept your REC, because you stayed solar, they will invest in other solar. Then you'll
Which
have
is why
two
what
solar
happened in
panels, not
Norwich
one.
was so important.
Yes. When you sell, if someone sells the RECs thinking that they are still solar, what you have is two people thinking they've gone solar, but only one has. One solar panel.
All right.
When both go solar, you have two solar panels.
Okay. Okay.
And this is what we do.
Now, Jonathan, I just want
Yes,
to
our
mention
time might be
we've
short.
got about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 or 3 minutes. This is what you do.
We sell solar that is solar.
Yeah.
Here's our graph. I don't know if you want to show our graph or not. It's a very easy graph.
It's a hazy graph. You're going to have
Is
to
it on
click
screen?
that. No, it's
No,
not
I
on
don't. Oh,
screen.
is this the graph?
Yeah, I'm ready for
Oh.
you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Bingo.
There you go.
100% solar. That's what our
Hazy
customers
graph.
get.
Oh, it's a
Well,
simple
that we're not going to go 100% solar, but we are, I believe, going to go 100% renewable.
Right.
And the solar component of that, I think, is going to be far and away the largest part. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And the reason is because it's the least expensive.
Yeah. And the sun is just dwarfs. The amount of energy available from the
absolutely.
sun dwarfs everything else.
Yeah, and
You
when
look like you're wearing a halo.
From the,
this is what I think is eventually going to happen. Is that the price of solar and the amount of solar. We're going to have a mix.
oh, of course.
And a lot of that mix is going to be from biodigesters because there's just the resources from biodigesters.
It makes
just
sense.
Astonishing, and we've got to do something.
And you don't want the methane to come out as methane.
And it's not just that. It's like my son was telling me about a biodigester he's working on in Wisconsin, where they're starting with municipal waste and ending with Class A Department of Agriculture fertilizer. You can
Yeah.
plant carrots in this stuff.
Yeah,
And that is an
You mean
important.
while they're generating electricity?
Well, what happens
heat.
is after the municipal waste goes through a treatment plant, which is unlike a current treatment plant, because what comes out is Class A fertilizer. It's essentially pasteurized.
But they're also getting the methane off
They're also getting the
that they
methane
can
off.
use as for energy.
That's right,
Yeah.
and they're powering themselves. But we're going to have to do that with a lot of the waste that we have because we've got
Absolutely.
lots of waste, and that's a practicality. But here, the solar, I think it's going to be far and away the largest chunk of our.
Yeah. And you want a diversity. You don't want to
you
put
do.
all your eggs in one
That's
basket.
right.
But
That
when
is
you've got
right.
an ostrich egg, make a big omelet.
That's right. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you.
Enjoyed
here.
it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And everybody, I hope you enjoyed this too. We will see you, I guess Tom and I will see you next week.
That's what we're planning.
That's what we're planning. Okay. Have a good week. I want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land so lovely earth can stay lovely still.